Type 6, Understanding Organization questions. This is the first of the connecting information questions. Some understanding questions may ask you to identify or recognize how one statement functions with respect to surrounding statements. Functions may include indicating or signaling a topic shift, connecting a main idea to a subtopic, providing an introduction or a conclusion, giving an example, starting a digression, or even making a joke. So take a look at the format examples. How does the professor organize the information about X? Why does the professor mention X? Remember, it may not have been apparent from the beginning that the professor organized information in a specific way, maybe chronologically or from least to most complex, or many other options. But remember, lectures may make comparisons to make a point. Something may seem off topic, but it could lead to important information. Let's take a look at an example. Listen to the excerpt from the lecture and then respond to the question. Remember, you can take notes if you need to, and you will have about 30 seconds to answer after the recording stops. So we have reproductive parts, the seeds, the fruit walls. We have leaf parts, but the great majority of the plant fibers come from the vasculature within the stem, fibers that occur in stem material. And what we do is consider these fibers, basically they're what are called bast fibers. Now, basically, bast fibers are part of the plant that the plant uses to maintain vertical structure. Think about it this way. What's the first thing you see when you see a building being built? Or what's the first thing they put up besides the foundation, of course? The metalwork, right? They put up all those steel girders everywhere. It's the framework. Okay, so basically, bast fibers constitute the structural framework to support the stem of the plant, okay? So, as the plant grows, it basically builds a girder system within that plant, like steel, so to speak. So, suppose you cut across the stem of one of these plants. Take a look at how the bast fibers are arranged. So, you're looking at a cross-section. You'll see that the fibers run vertically side by side, up and down next to each other, forming a kind of tube, which is significant. Because which is physically stronger, a solid rod or a tube? The tube. Physics tells you that. What's essentially happening, the plant is forming a structural ring of these bast fibers all around the stem. And that shape allows for structural rigidity, but it also allows for bending and motion. So, what answer did you choose? If you chose D, then that was correct. Remember, the lecture is about plants and plant fibers, not steel girders. The professor mentions the steel girders only to compare them to the structural framework of fibers in a plant. This is the professor's attempt to help the students visualize the plant structure. This is a very important digression. Type 7, or connecting contact questions, can be widely variable. It may ask you to organize information in a different way from how it was presented in the lecture. You might be asked to identify comparisons, cause and effect, or contradiction and agreement. You may also be asked to classify items in categories, identify a sequence of events or steps in a process, or specify relationships among objects along some dimension. Other options for connecting contact questions require you to make inferences about the relationship amongst things mentioned in the lecture. You may have to predict an outcome, draw a logical conclusion, extrapolate or take out some additional information, infer a cause and effect relationship, or specify some particular sequence of events. So let's take a deeper look into this. Check out the questions. What is the likely outcome of doing procedure X before doing procedure Y? What can be inferred about X? What does the professor imply about X? It's very important for you to pay attention to the way that you format your notes during connecting contact questions. So let's look closer at an example for format clarification. Here you have a graphic organizer. Often, questions that require you to fill in a chart or put events into order fall into the Type 7 category. As you listen to the lectures accompanying this study guide, pay attention to the way you format your notes. Clearly identifying terms and their definitions, as well as steps in a process, will help you answer Type 7 questions. This is an example which requires you to present information in a different format than how it was presented in the lecture. You should think about creating your own graphic organizers to help you simplify the information that you're listening to. With practice, you will be able to recognize when information is being presented into categories. Let's take a look at one more example. Listen to the audio clip below, and then you will have 30 seconds to answer the question. Okay, Neptune and its moons. Neptune has several moons, but there's only, we'll probably only worry about two of them, the two fairly interesting ones. The first one's Triton. Now, you have a little struggle with this word. Titan, which is the big moon of Saturn, and the name Triton, which is the big moon of Neptune. Now, Triton, it's the only large moon in the solar system to go backwards, to go around its, what we call its parent, in this case Neptune, the wrong way. Okay? Every other large moon orbits the parent planet in the same counterclockwise direction, same as most other bodies in the solar system. But this moon, the reverse direction, which is perfectly okay as far as the laws of gravity are concerned. But it indicates some sort of peculiar event in the solar system that gave this moon a motion in contrast to the general spin of the raw material that it was formed from. The other moon orbiting Neptune that I want to talk about is Nereid. Nereid has the most eccentric orbit, the most lopsided elliptical type orbit for a large moon in the solar system. The others tend to have more circular orbits. Does that mean that Pluto and Neptune might have been related somehow in the past and then drifted slowly into their present orbits? Did Pluto ever belong to the Neptune system? Do Neptune's moons represent Pluto-type bodies that have been captured by Neptune? Was Pluto the object that disrupted the Neptune system at some point in the past? It's really hard to prove any of these things. But now we're starting to appreciate that there's quite a few junior Plutos out there. Not big enough to really call a planet, but large enough that they're significant in history of the solar system. So we'll come back to those when we talk about comets and other small bodies in the fringes of the outer solar system. So, what did you choose? If you chose D, then you're correct. In connecting content questions, you will have to use information from more than one place in the lecture. In this example, the professor describes the orbits of Triton and Nereid. In both cases, he refers to the events in the early solar system that might have changed or disrupted their orbits. Remember, the information might not be explicitly stated. You must make the connections.